Hi, welcome to our show. Our show is Chronic Ailments and Scientific Nutrition. I'm Janar Iman. I'm a clinical nutritionist. And today we're going to be talking about natural solutions based on lab analysis. Natural meaning nature solutions. So what does that mean? The goal of natural medicine is prevention and repair. And we want to get as deep in the body as we can. We want to get it on the cellular level. I've been practicing nutrition for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, and I've seen a lot of results combining modern science with old-fashioned wisdom now that we could never do before. So using science combined with natural medicines, we can help the body facilitate its own healing. And we do this with labs, state-of-the-art technology, which we're going to be talking about later, nature's medicine, which is food and nutrition, and then whole food supplementation, which is nature's supplements and things that nature has given us to heal ourselves. So the topic of our show today is cholesterol. This is a recap. I did another show on cholesterol, and there's still a lot of confusion. So we're going to review some facts, and then we're going to talk a little more about it. So is it our friend and is it our foe, villain or hero? It's nature's Band-Aid, but where did it go wrong? So it's an epidemic, a world epidemic, and so we need to answer these questions. And so we're going to do it as we go through this show and talk about our philosophy as well. So our philosophy is fixing the cell by restoring cellular function from the inside. So that's on the cellular level. Here's your beautiful DNA strand, and we take East and old-fashioned philosophy and we put it with modern science, modern Western medicine, the best parts of it. And with comprehensive lab results, with nutritional recommendations, we get amazing results. So one of the things about cholesterol is that it's all about our heart. And the heart, this is a picture of the human heart that I lifted from the internet, and you can find it on there if you want to get a closer look. But really what it does in this illustration is show that it is a very complex circulatory system, and it's a pump, and it's pumping fluids and gases and immune cells, the gases being oxygen, carbon dioxide, red blood cells, and nutrients all over the body. So it's an amazing human highway, and it's got to stay open. We don't want a traffic jam in there. Thus, we have a cholesterol issue that we're going to talk about. So what is cholesterol? Okay, cholesterol is very important to the body. It builds and maintains cellular membranes. It's essential for determining which molecules pass in and out of the cell walls. It's involved in the production of sex hormones, both male and female. That's androgens and estrogens. So it doesn't leave any one of us out. It's essential for the production of adrenal hormones, cortisol, and aldosterone, and corticosterone, very important hormones. What else? It aids in the production of bile. It converts sunshine to vitamin D. Okay, that's something that a lot of us don't know about. And the production of bile aids in the emulsification of fats. So we want that. That's something we want, okay? And it's important for the metabolism of fat-soluble vitamins. That's A, D, E, and K. And it insulates nerve fibers. So, you know, it keeps us from getting too stressed out. When we don't have the right fats in our body and we don't have the cholesterol production in the right kind of cholesterol, we get stressed on all levels. So is cholesterol that important? Well, yes, it is. It's manufactured in the body by the liver, and it's manufactured from lipids. So it's really important to the integrity of tissues, nerve cells, and every cell contains it in the outer layer of the cell, which is the membrane. And it's so important that your liver routinely makes 300 to 500 milligrams per day. And it does this from the intake of what you eat, but it does it from what you eat rather than actually the foods itself. So 60 to 70% of all blood cholesterol is from liver production, but not per se from the food. It has to be digested. It has to go through the body. The body manufactures this process from this wonderful chemical breakdown and it knows what to do, and it knows how to do it best. So cholesterol has carrier pigeons to take it throughout the body because, you know, that great arterial highway we were talking about is so vast. And we have our little carrier pigeons here. LDL is the low-density lipid protein that everybody's afraid of. That's the protein that causes the problems. It causes the inflammation. It causes the atherosclerosis from the inflammation as it tries to repair things. But why does it do that? I mean, in all actuality, LDL protein itself is not bad when it's large particles. When it gets to small particles, and that happens with the wrong kind of fats and the wrong kind of foods combining together and causing inflammation and a lack of repair, a lack of cellular repair, we get this tiny particled LDL protein that's able to get in and penetrate the cell wall. And the veins and the arteries, it gets in there. And whereas the large ones, the ones that are good, that help us make our hormones, they don't do that. So we do need it. We need it, it's important, but it's the quality of it. That's where the confusion lies. The HDL, the high-density lipid protein, does the opposite. It's nature's Band-Aid. And while the LDL cholesterol carries cholesterol from the liver to the cells from where it's made, HDL prevents arterial disease, and it takes cholesterol away from the cells. So it takes it back to the liver, and then the liver breaks it down, and when it breaks it down, it's able to expel it as waste from the body. So that's an important thing, okay? So we have this nice balance that goes on when we're in the right ratio of cholesterol, okay? The other form is triglycerides, and that's where we get cholesterol from our food, is the triglycerides. And I have a little picture here of oils and fats. That's olive oil and olives and some fats and some healthy things that are very important to the body, which we often ignore. So triglycerides are chemical forms in which most fats exist in the body and in food, okay? And they're in our food, and they're made by the body from energy sources such as sugars. Okay, so when I was talking earlier about the fact that it's made from food, well, cholesterol is also made from sugar. Surprise, surprise, all right? Most people don't know that. And they're stored in fat cells. Triglycerides are stored in fat cells, and then they're converted. Hormones convert these back to energy for fuel for the body. So the body knows what it's doing, but do we? That's the question. So where does this go wrong? What happened? What happened to make this all go off? It's inflammation, and for the reasons I was talking about. When you get these sugars and they combine with the wrong kind of fats, and we start making this small particle LDL lipid protein, and it starts depositing places and causing inflammation, then we have a problem. There's been many, many clinical studies showing that diets and natural fats do not raise cholesterol. This beautiful picture here is of the Maasai tribe of Africa, and they're cattle herders, and they live on milk and meat and blood and fat, and they have pristine cholesterol. And they've been studied over and over and over again by clinicians and the medical profession to really try to figure this out. And science has noticed that their cholesterol always levels out at 150. Well, I mean, that's the most ideal cholesterol one could possibly have. And then we have to ask, how do they do it on this diet? Okay, so we were talking about what happens when we get the wrong kind of buildup of cholesterol. And here's another picture that you could probably find on the internet. I got this from PubMed Health. I invite you to go look for it because it's a real good picture. If you don't see a good close-up of it on TV, you can study it closely. Here, in this area right here, there's a tear in the artery wall. These are red blood cells. This is a little macrophage cell, and everything starts happening to the body, in the body, when it tries to repair itself. So we start getting these fat deposits that accumulate as nature tries to fix itself. So eventually what happens when this builds up too much is we get the atherosclerosis, which is a disease of the arteries in which the fatty material and the plaque are deposited on the wall of an artery, and that results in the narrowing of the arterial lumen. That's the highway we were talking about that we want to keep open. And so then it impairs the blood flow. When it impairs the blood flow, that's like a traffic jam. And so, you have to figure out ways to get around that. And as they narrow more and more, as more inflammation sets in, then we go to disease. So that's what we're trying to prevent in this situation. So we have different ways inflammation is caused in the body. And it really starts at a cellular level. Here's a little picture of a cellular membrane. And this is a double lipid layer in the cell, okay? Your cell is made of fats, and if you don't have it, we were talking about how important it is and how the body makes it because it needs it. If it doesn't have the right ones, and there's also things called cardiolipins in here as well that are really important. But if these get brittle and nutrition can't get in and out and inflammation happens, we have a problem because we can't create cellular energy. And we can't get the ATP made in the cell. So the glutathione isn't made. We don't get the SOD. I'm throwing out big words, but just know that what I'm throwing out there is that the cell can't repair itself correctly. And so then we start the inflammation that causes the diseases to form. Because these receptors on the cell membrane are blunted, and they can't hear these hormones talking anymore. The hormones being insulin, insulin's also trying to drive nutrition into the cell. So thus, this is further exasperated by the fact that when you can't get nutrition into the cell, your body craves sugar. And what we were just talking about is we know now that sugar is one of the largest contributors to LDL cholesterol and inflammation. So those horrible sugar cravings and then the inability to burn fat is just putting insult on top of injury. So we've got some solutions for cellular inflammation, and one of them is to clean up the diet. We want to use good fats, we want to decrease the harmful fats, and we want to take down the sugars that we intake. And this in turn will reduce inflammation because the sugars combined with the poor fats, rancid fats and oxidized fats from vegetable oils, we'll talk about that in a minute, are a recipe for this LDL cholesterol, the poor kind that we're talking about. And then we have some cellular healing protocols that we're going to talk about. But one of the great ways that we do this is by testing you to see what you actually need. So we can regenerate the mitochondria of the cell, the cellular membrane, and reduce the inflammation. So we want true cellular detoxification to remove the cause, and those are all the ways we're talking about, and then assist the body to heal. So symptoms of cardio stress that you might wonder about. You wonder, just if you're not looking at your blood work, and you notice that you have signs happening. Some of them are cold hands and feet, or that pins and needles feeling. You get up out of a chair and you notice you have a little bit of lack of circulation, so you get leg cramping when you're walking. Burning or tingling in hands and feet, that is a symptom of cardio stress. It's a big one. Discoloration in the fingers and toes, the lack of circulation, and spider veins. We start to notice that as we get older, and that's, those are because the integrity of the veins are starting to weaken. Things like slurred speech, poor concentration, slow healing of superficial wounds are all part of the process of the cardiovascular system breakdown. So how does this happen? We were just talking about it. It's what goes wrong is inflammation. It isn't exactly the food that we're putting in our body. It isn't saying, oh, I'm never going to eat fat again because I don't want those triglycerides and I don't want that cholesterol. But it's the combination of things that cause inflammation, and that's what inflammation, and that's what's the key. So if natural dietary fats don't increase cholesterol, what does? Well, studies show that because it's an inflammatory disease, it's what we put into our body, and you wouldn't build a house with inferior materials if it was your house. So why would you do that with your body? And yet we're just sold constantly by the media, by commercials, by advertising, taste this, try that. We have comfort foods. And sometimes they get out of hand. And some of the worst ones are the bad fats, the sugars, and the toxins. And here we have this beautiful array of whole grain bread, which for many people is very inflammatory, not only because it has gluten in it, but because it turns to sugar so very fast. And if you're not combining that with high quality fats and proteins, then what you're doing is you're giving yourself a shot of sugar. We have the real stuff that we know is bad that we feed our children, which is colored with chemicals, and it's a lot of starchy materials that turn to sugar faster than you can blink your eye, and then it's fortified with chemicals in the form of synthetic vitamins, which are very difficult for the body to deal with. And so unfortunately we feed this to our kids, and I have clients that come into my office and some of them still eat this stuff for breakfast because they're so used to it, and it doesn't seem like morning without it. And then we have the bisphenol, the plastic in the bottles from our water. So many years we're running down the road and we're drinking out of our water bottles and not realizing that we're getting all these plastic toxins in our body. And so these things build up, and the toxic overload is what causes inflammation. And then if we're not eating right, if we're not getting the right nutrients and supplements, we're just defeating ourselves as far as our healing goes. So then I got to ask you, here's your little test, which is better? I'm looking at the egg. The egg is what everybody freaks out over. It's the most malaligned food on the planet. We have margarine, which science gave us so that we could improve our cholesterol. And then we have the newest form, the latest since the 80s, which is canola oil. So this is a picture of an organic brand of canola oil. And I would almost guess that most of you out there don't know that it contains trans fats. Why? It's how it's made, okay? So what happens is the oil itself has to be extracted from a little seed called rapeseed. And in that process, the omega-3s in that little seed get heated up and they begin to oxidize, because all vegetables, as soon as you begin to extract the oils, those oils become rancid the minute they hit the oxygen. They start to oxidize. So this happens, and then it leaves a funny smell. And so in the deodorization process of this oil, it's heated again and it's processed. And now these omegas are trans fatty acids. And they might be small, but they build up. And this is what America's living on since the 80s to help with our cholesterol. Some people are a little smarter about margarine now, but most people think canola oil is the thing that's going to keep their cholesterol down, and unfortunately what they're doing is a disservice to themselves. And so I'm just going to come back to this beautiful little picture of the egg. And inside the yolk, which has got cholesterol in it, this little egg yolk has something called lecithin. It has 8 times the amount of lecithin than the cholesterol in it, because nature knew that it needed this lecithin to emulsify the cholesterol, and so that you can absorb all the vitamins, the B vitamins, the B12 in there, the inositol and choline, and everything in that little yolk, as well as the protein around the outside. So I'm just going to let you think about that, which is better. Still, we have our fatal attractions. Here's a real bad version of the combination of wheat and sugar. These are our sweets, our little rolls, our sugars. Everything is so processed. And then they're made with vegetable oils and trans fatty acids usually. Straight sugar we already know about. It's probably better than this though. And this is what we feed our kids, what we eat in the movies. This is our comfort food. The chips and the candy bars with the trans fats. They're getting better, but it's like I said, the combination of the poor fats and sugars that are the recipe for disaster. So what we want to do is we want to find out what's going on with you. Let's get a picture. Here's where we do our work. We do preventative lab testing. And when you get your lab work done, usually by your doctor or your clinic, you're going to go in with a set of symptoms, and they're going to test you for the set of symptoms that you have. And many, many times, since those test results are based on the ranges of sick people who come to the doctor to get their blood work done, The averages are averages for sick people, and you might fall into what's a healthy range, but it's actually a functional low or a functional high range. It isn't perfect health. What we like to do is we like to test and base our test scores on people who are actually healthy. So our ranges are high. In that way, we can see where the markers are for where something's going wrong, and we can do prevention. Then we don't get into abnormal highs and abnormal low values, but we're catching things in the beginning before they get worse. And then we're finding out and figuring out ways to prevent it and turn it back. So here's what it looks like. This is 2 tests on a comparison level. When the patient first came in, their blood work looked like this. It's 52 different tests. We do everything all at once so that we can get a good picture of you. And anything that's white is in the healthy range. You just saw that little chart where it showed the healthy range. Anything red is, we need to deal with this. There's inflammation setting in. It's there. And anything yellow is a warning sign. So you can look at it like traffic lights, except for when we see blue. This is code blue. This is something happening in your body that if we don't deal with it right now, this is going to head straight into disease if it hasn't already. So this is after the person has been on the protocol for a year. They came back in and they tested again, and you can see that most of these reds have either turned to yellow or they've turned into healthy ranges of normal healthy people, not sick people. And there's no blue, and so we're happy with that. So why comprehensive lab analysis with blood, urine, and hair? That equals you. We get to see exactly what's going on inside of you. It's very important. So with comprehensive urinalysis, we can see what the body's casting off. And with hair analysis, we can see what the body is casting off in a different way. So here's a test. And on this test, up here is the toxins that are released in the hair from the blood. And you want to see things in the low ranges on the upper part, because these are your nasty things like beryllium and things you don't want in your body. Okay, down here are your minerals, and so many of us are mineral deficient. What you want to see on the lower part is you don't want to see anything too high and you don't want to see anything too low. You want to see everything sort of in the middle like this, the perfect scores. So we have some off scores here that we need to work with. How and why that works is because every hair follicle, here's a picture of a hair follicle, is hooked up to here you see the little vein and artery going into it, and the hair casts off in places where it can release itself toxins and minerals. And so it'll put them in, these little dots here on the hair follicle are trace amounts of chemical substances. Some of them are minerals, some of them are okay, but many of them are toxins, and that's what we want to know. We want to see what's good, we want to see what's bad, and we want to see what we need to deal with, because toxins disrupt hormones, and most of us are always having hormone issues as we get older. So I have another little test, and we were talking about cellular information. This test is 50 times more accurate than blood testing, so we like to do it. It takes 10 minutes. We do it in our office, and it's called a Medioxy test. It tests for urinary malonaldehyde, and that is a byproduct of cellular lipid peroxidation and free radical damage, which is very important because that's how we can tell right off the bat whether we're dealing with a cholesterol issue and an oxidation issue on the cellular level. And then we can go right in and fix that. And we love to address those issues right away if we see a problem there. And usually, this is a test, it's very inexpensive, so you can come in and do it as much as you want. And so even a couple months later, you'll notice a difference after the protocols. It's very important. Here's some cardiovascular healing products that we like to use from a natural basis. This one right here is for toxins, the Ono cycle. This one right here is for methylating the cell. There's one here that helps provide, it's called energy, it helps provide ATP, and this is cardiolipins to feed that cellular membrane and so forth. And then some hormonal support. This is an example of something that you might get that's based on your blood work. Everybody's a little different. We look at to see what your individual problems are before we give you supplements, but this is how nature can provide. These are whole food supplements and natural herbs and whole food vitamins. So your individual comprehensive lab testing can tell you exactly where to start your healing, what nutrients you need. There's no guessing game on your fork. This is a picture of a fork with nutrients in case you can't see it very well. And so we combine herbs, this is, food. This isn't your mint from your garden. It takes down inflammation. It's one thing that does. And we give the body what it needs on a nutritional level with food and supplements and lifestyle changes to heal itself. Very important. So back to the labs. Why is it important? Lab testing based on averages of thousands of healthy people is important as markers for health. You know exactly where you stand. You know exactly what your particular body is doing as far as breaking down and causing inflammation. You might be more prone to diabetes, even though you have a cholesterol issue than a heart issue, because your genetic or epigenetic makeup may be different than somebody else's. So it's very important to have all the complete comprehensive testing when you look holistically at a person. And we like to do that, and we're able to do that now with technology and this kind of lab work. So what's really, really exciting about it is every nutrient that you get is specifically designed for you. And so by computer analysis, there's no mistake. There's no guessing, and nothing's mixed. So what we'd like to do is give thanks today to CMCM for bringing this information to you. It's a powerful way of healing the body, and I appreciate them very much for allowing us to do this show. My name is Janar Iman. I'm a clinical nutritionist. I have a practice in San Rafael. And this is my phone number, 415-496-5205. And this show airs on Saturdays at 2:30 on Channel 26 in Marin County. If you'd like more information too, I have a website, vitalnaturalhealthsolutions.com. Thank you for joining us today. May you be in good health.